So we got this 371 XP Husqvarna saw, and what it's doing is sometimes it'll backfire when you start it and it will die. It doesn't want to rev up. That's what I was told, is that basically you hit the throttle, it backfires and it dies. I started it up and I got it to kind of idle, and I did get it to backfire the first time, and then after that, now it'll idle. It won't rev up at all. It just kind of gurgles a little bit. It doesn't die, but it doesn't run either. So I'll show you what it's doing. So as you can see, it's just kind of roaring. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to check inside the muffler. There should be a screen in there. I think it's a spark arrestor. And based upon the symptoms of it, it's not stalling. So I think it's still getting fuel. It's just not allowing it to come out of the engine. So I think it's just running rich. And when I go to rev it up, it's just not revving up at all because it's not letting anything out of the exhaust. So it's kind of like blowing through a small hole. You still have the same amount of air will go through. It's just that it's just being restricted, so it can only suck in as much as it'll let pass out. So it's not making it run lean, because it's only bringing in so much air. So it's still making a somewhat normal fuel mixture. So that's why it's staying running. It's just not able to get out, is what I'm thinking. It might not be that, but that's gonna be my first step, is to check that. Alright, so we take the 4 Allen bolts out. Looks like it's 5/32, or maybe just 2. Probably 4. I don't know if this has some type of, well, it must have some type of advance in it. I guess that could maybe be not functioning right, and it's not advancing the timing, so it's just kind of gurgling. But I think you could still, I imagine you could still rev it up without the timing advancing. It just wouldn't have any power. looks like that little spark arrestor is right here on the top. So I either have to take the case off, case cover. Maybe I'll do that. I'll take the case cover off. So we got 3 screws on the top. So we got 1, 2, 3. I'll probably have to take this off. Take off our air filter. That off. Probably clean this stuff up. So our little screen is going to be right in, oops, right in there. So I got to take that screw out and slide it out. It's actually pretty clear. That ain't no problem. Alright, I'm gonna finish pulling the muffler off. There's 2 more Allen head bolts inside these 2 holes. What was it, 3/16 is in there. You could probably get one that's a little bit tighter, but it fits. Yeah, it's probably not the right size. Quite a bit of oil coming out of there, it looks like. Yeah. So, I don't know if you can see in there. And I can see all the way into the cylinder. The crosshatch is still on there. If you can see in the back side. Might not be clear enough, but anyway. So there's no scoring on the piston. So it's probably not the problem. You take the spark plug out, just to check it. It's probably not the issue, but I just want to look at it anyway. You know what? While we're here, I'm just going to put this muffler back on. Now this plug is just drenched in fuel, so I wonder if we're having an ignition problem, or if we got bad fuel, it's just not igniting. At least that could be an issue too. Maybe the fuel's not igniting. I would think if it was that though, it would just stall right away, because then you're over leaning it, or you're leaning it out, and I would have thought that it would stall. But we could try a different plug, see if that helps, before I start taking a carburetor apart and cleaning the carburetor. That's obviously a lot of fuel on there. Either that or a lot of oil, one of the two. Smells like gas. So I got the muffler back on. I just kind of wondered, it's like it was revving up, so I thought, well, it wasn't dying like they had said initially. I put the spark plug in on the head here, and up here like this, and I was just pulling it, and I don't know if you'll be able to see, but you get some spark out of it. So I started thinking, it's like, I wonder if the chain was too tight. So I tried to move the chain, and it was really tight. So I loosened it up a little bit so I can move it a little bit easier. And I'll put the plug in, the air filter back on, and I'm going to see if it runs right now. And it's kind of stupid, but maybe the chain was just too tight. It doesn't get a lot of use, so not exactly sure what the problem would be. It's not like one of those definite, here's the problem. And with all the fuel in there, it seems to have pretty good compression, but with all the fuel that was on the plug, I guess it could be a ignition problem, or it could be bad fuel that's not burning, or they could have too much oil in it. So I'm gonna try this. If it works, if it doesn't work now, I'm going to try and change the gas out of it and see if that helps. Just because, I mean, it's obviously getting plenty of gas in there. Because well, like the fuel that was on that spark plug, it's getting fuel. So I'll put this back on. Give it a try. Alright, so I did a couple of extra things. I swapped the spark plug out with a different spark plug just to kind of rule it out, and I ran the same way. So it's not the spark plug. Just did a compression test. I'm getting what, 140 psi. So it's not a compression problem, not an exhaust problem. It's not a spark plug problem. So while I was in here, I removed this little line. It's like the crankcase pulsing pressure line. I think I'm not exactly sure what it does. I think it just kind of makes the little flapper in here work like a fuel pump to pump the fuel up. That I'm getting pulsation on. I just kind of put my thumb over it and I pulled pulled the handle with a spark plug out, and I could feel it kind of pulsating back and forth, and I'm getting plenty of fuel up into the cylinder. So I cleaned this off and I ran it for maybe a minute, and it's got that much fuel on it, so it's getting a lot of fuel. It doesn't sound like it's running right either. It's kind of, I mean, when you hear a saw run, it sounds like it's only running off of maybe like every few rotations, because it's just like boom, 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 boom. I mean, I don't know. It might be right. It doesn't seem like it's firing like it's supposed to be. Just for giggles, I figured I would try to adjust the carburetor a little bit. I was looking at a manual, and it said to for the initial start procedure, it said to run both the low and the high jet in all the way, and then back them off 1 1/4 turns. The low was out 1 3/4, and the high was actually turned all the way in and bottomed out. So I think someone was kind of messing around with this before they brought it to me. But I'm not sure. It might, I mean, I don't think it vibrated in against the spring, but I'm not sure. So anyway, I backed both screws out to 1 1/4, and while it was running, I tried adjusting, and it didn't make a difference. It just would not rev up. And you can see right here on the muffler, we're getting almost raw fuel coming right out there. So it's not firing like it's supposed to, I'm going to guess. So I'm still kind of leaning towards the coil, but like I say, I'm not exactly sure. I was hoping I could have one, but I'm probably gonna have to just get one and go with that. I might get a carburetor rebuild kit too and try that first, because it's cheaper. I don't think it's the carburetor, but I could be wrong. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm thinking it's one of the two. Alright, so I figured I'd take the carburetor apart and check in there and see if I got maybe any torn diaphragms or anything. Just to see, just trying to narrow it down. So, take these 2 screws out that run in there. I got a 3mm Allen head, Allen key, whatever. I'll pull a little choke lever off. A little squeeze, unhook it. Maybe. Yep. fuel line off. Take the little pump thing off. Take the little throttle cable off. And here we are. So, I clean this up a little bit. All right. Like I said, I don't think my problem is going to be in here. So that screen's clean. See a little screen in there? That can get clogged up with stuff. And then it's basically like a secondary filter that's inside there. Not really anything in it. Little dust and get there's some little holes in this that allow the air to kind of pump back and forth, or the little flappers to kind of flap. Just gonna blow the stuff off there. Put that back in. So I don't think I have a problem on that end. Take apart the bottom here. What you're looking at. Pop the bottom off this side. A little dirt in there. think that's a problem. This is the part that kind of pumps the fuel. You want it to be kind of soft. Soft! Trying to keep dirt out of it. I don't have a rebuild kit, so I'm just trying to kind of do a little exploring. So, you don't want this to be stiff because this is what kind of like pumps your fuel. This is still soft, so I don't think this is my problem. I just wanted to check and make sure, like nothing was stuck in there or of that sort. Looks clean. It's pretty good. So basically, if you do like a carburetor rebuild, that's pretty much what you're going to do. You're just going to change out this, and then the other kind of flapper pieces that's on the other side. But so I haven't gotten one, so I'm just going to put it back together. And I think I'm getting excessive fuel, so I'm still kind of leaning towards it's the coil. They're kind of pricey, and I didn't want to kind of say it was and be wrong. I guess technically it could still be something in the carburetor, but I don't know. That plug gets pretty saturated with fuel. I'm guessing it's an ignition problem. Alright, so let's slip this back in. I'll put the throttle cable back on first. I can click the choke to keep that in. Yeah.
hear a screaming chainsaw.
I don't hear a screaming chainsaw either.
Did it work?
Huh?
Did it work?
What? What I'm doing?
Playing with the screws?
I did not.
Why?
Because that ain't the problem.
What is it?
Alright, so I pulled off the full stock cover. And I'm just kind of checking it here. I'm going to clean it up. So basically I'm down to the keyway inside the flywheel here, or the coil. So when if that shears, it can turn, and then it's not on the correct stroke. Or not the correct stroke, but the timing will be off. I don't necessarily think that's what it's going to be, because you pull off of this, so I think it would have kept turning it, but it's possible it might have moved a little bit. I mean, basically I'm kind of leaning towards the coil, but we shall find out. All right, so I kind of messed around with this a little bit more. So I tried changing the spark plug with a different spark plug. That didn't make a difference. I started it and I took the air filter off and I held the throttle open and I sprayed starter fluid into the intake of the carburetor while it was running, and it did not rev up at all. So that wasn't the issue. So I'm leaning towards the coil isn't working right, or the timing is off because of a sheared key that's in the flywheel. So I had to figure out how to take the flywheel off. I don't really have a puller that can get in there, so I took the 13mm nut off, and then what I did was I put the screwdriver under here and I pried on it a little bit, and I took a fine point on my impact air hammer, whatever it is, and I just went right on the center, right in the center hole, and I pried up a little bit on the flywheel, and I just gave it a couple of, about that, and it popped right off. Right in there, and it popped right off. So I took it out, I checked it, and the Husqvarna saws have a cast-in keyway, and the keyway is still there, so the keyway is not my problem. So I don't want to say it, but really the only thing I could think of is it's the coil. So that's where I'm at with that. Wish they're a little bit cheaper, it'd be easier to pull the trigger on it, but that's what I'm thinking. So as you can see, it revs up now. So took the coil out and I swapped it with this one out of it's 372 XP, and the numbers weren't the same, but I figured it'll at least fit in there. I mean, I don't know if it's got a rev limiter is the difference in them, but I wanted to see if it revved up, because this one, as you remember, was not revving up at all. It was just kind of continually bogging. So now keep in mind, this was sparking, it was running, it just was not revving up, and the problem is the coil. So I'm going to take this one back apart, and I'm going to install it in this one. So I guess I can keep the camera on and let you guys see that. So at least it puts my mind at ease knowing what the problem is, and I'm not kind of shooting in the dark, because it's like $80 to $100 for the coil. So that. Now, I didn't tuck everything back in, but there's this wire here. Pull that wire back. Pull the coil out of them little holders. Or not the coil, but the spark plug wire. Just kind of pull this out to the side. Take our wire off the coil. Grab our Allen head. I think this one's a 4mm. I think 5/32 fit in there too, but it wouldn't fit underneath the under the bar, so I had to use a different one. So what is this one? This one. Yeah, so this ain't the number they gave me. I had the number that's on the coil, and I said it crossed over to many different times, but the one they gave me was just an unlimited RPM one. I think it was 544047101. So I mean, part of the reason it was sputtering like that is I'm pretty sure that the spark plug is pretty fouled, because it was soaked with gas quite a bit. I think when I changed the plug from that saw to this saw, I wonder if it was that saw. I don't remember. It might not have been that saw. Anyway, I took the plug out of one of these saws, and I used it in here, and I might have got a little bit, I don't know about foul, but it got covered in gas. So then that saw wasn't running right. So I had to take the plug out and clean it up, and now that one's working. So I'm pretty sure that this plug being soaked with gas so much is probably foul. That's why it's not running, not revving up as well as it was, or well as it should be. But anyway, so at least now I know that the problem is the coil. This guy over. I usually just use a business card. So you get the magnetic section here. What I'll do is I'll take this card and we'll rotate it around. We'll use that to set our gap. Yeah. What is that? So I'll push kind of push this up against it so it's sitting right, and then we'll tighten up these two bolts.
Bring it up.
Yeah, it's coil.
What's the coil?
Okay. Pull our card out. You got a gap. So there's this little hole, little nub sticking out there that this goes into. But you got to kind of line that up. Okay. Snap that in there, that in there.
Did you say you had any of these?
Alright. So, you got a wire kind of wrapped back in, so it goes in there. And then the coil wire tucks under them two tabs and goes up through there. Into the plug. I just gotta take this kill switch wire and plug it back in. There's that. And which one was this? 72. Put this back together. Put our screws back in. Yeah. That's how that goes. Stick this back on. cap back on. Voila, that's that. So, kind of an interesting problem. Anyway, that's how you change a coil in your Husqvarna saw. Hope that helps somebody. If not, let me know what I did wrong, and I thank you for watching.